I'd like to now review the agenda briefly and thank Mike Spinney, Senior Privacy Analyst of the Ponemon Institute, for joining us today. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
And Michael Leland, Chief Technology Officer of NitroSecurity. How are you, Michael?
Great, thank you.
Okay. With no further ado, I'd like to turn the session over to Mike Spinney.
Thanks, Jerry, and again, thank you to NitroSecurity for asking me to participate in this. One of the great things about working with the Ponemon Institute is I get a chance to meet a lot of companies that are doing some great things in information security, particularly the technologies that apply to protecting sensitive information. And I've known Nitro for a few months now, and just impressed with what they've been doing. But what we've got to talk about today is really about 8 years of history. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time going into the details of those early years, because I think right now we're in a situation where these state laws that we're talking about that have now national reach, or really the game has changed in the last couple months. But I do think we need to go back to get that history in order to understand where we are today and how did we get here. It really starts back in 2002. California passes a law, SB 1386, that goes into effect in 2003 and languishes in obscurity for a few years. Nobody really pays much attention. Those of us who are privacy geeks had heard a little bit of, little something about what was going on, and it was interesting. But at the time, for those of you that have been paying attention, of course, HIPAA was really the focus of the national privacy attention. But in 2005, something happened that took SB 1386 out of obscurity and put it on the national stage and really made it what we now refer to as a de facto national law. What was that event? Well, let's look at a chronology of some of the notable breaches that have happened. You'll see at the top, ChoicePoint. I don't know if you're familiar with ChoicePoint. It's a company that makes its money by trading information. They collect information about you and I. They put it into files and sell it to companies that have a need to check credit. Government agencies buy this information. Companies that want to know how to reach certain demographics, they will buy information from companies like ChoicePoint. Well, in 2005, ChoicePoint sold information to what I will call some Nigerian entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, we know that Nigeria is the home of the infamous Nigerian scam letter. And it just was poetic that these scam artists came out of Nigeria, but they asked ChoicePoint to sell them some information. ChoicePoint gladly complied, but it turns out they had nefarious aims for this information. California said to ChoicePoint, hey, you sold that information to some of that information you sold was about our citizens. You need to comply with our law and notify them that they are now at risk of credit fraud. ChoicePoint said, well, we're in Georgia. We're not a California company. We don't have to comply. California said, oh, yes, you do. It became a public fight, and ChoicePoint eventually complied. Well, other states were paying attention to this, and they said, hey, if you're going to let California citizens know, you need to let us know. You need to let our citizens know. ChoicePoint said, no, we don't. The public said, yes, you do. Eventually, ChoicePoint said, okay, we will do that too. As a result, again, SB 1386 becomes a national law de facto and makes this issue of information security and data breach of personally identifiable information a national issue. Well, not long after that, Bank of America notifies its customers, about 600,000 of them, that some storage tapes had gone missing in transit to storage. I mean, this is electronic data on tapes being transferred to a storage facility. They turn up missing somewhere in between. They have to let their customers know. Now, what happened there were senators and congressmen whose names were among those 600,000. So suddenly Washington, D.C. says, hey, this is an issue we need to pay some attention to. Hearings are held in Washington, D.C., and now this issue starts to really take on some momentum. The Veterans Administration, not long thereafter, employee downloads information onto a laptop computer, takes this information home to catch up on some work. The laptop computer is stolen. Millions of U.S. veterans, myself among them, get letters from the VA saying, this is what happened. And there was a precedent set there. First of all, it highlighted the vulnerability of information on mobile devices. Laptop computers are generally involved in about half of the data breaches that take place every year. But there was an interesting precedent set there, in that the Veterans Administration set aside some money because they said in case somebody has financial harms that are not covered by typical liability limitations, we need to have money available to make them whole. That was an important precedent because up until then, nobody had even so much as admitted that a data breach could result in harm. Adding to the potential cost for a data breach. Now, the Boston Globe, not long thereafter, they are delivering newspapers to stores, convenience stores, and other drop points around New England, and they wrap their bundles of newspaper in scrap paper. Unfortunately, that scrap paper had information on it. Credit card numbers, checking account numbers, debit card numbers. An intrepid convenience store employee notified the authorities that this had happened. Now the Boston Globe, a newspaper, realizes they've got a PR problem on their hand. And also, the vulnerability of paper documents is revealed through this incident. TJX, transmitting information in the clear over wireless networks, ward drivers parking in the parking lot are able to tap into those transmissions, steal information, execute credit fraud. Heartland, recent event, but Heartland was interesting because they are infected with malware. Their information is compromised. And what did they say in defense? Well, we were compliant with PCI DSS, the payment card industry digital security standard. We shouldn't have, we did everything we could have. Well, that really set the bar with compliance, in that it's not a goal, it's a starting point. And so these issues, because of these notable breaches, have reached to the point where we are today.